Holy fuck, it's been a while for us here at the Rub Wrestling Podcast with Matt, Josh, and Chris, but you know what? We got one big word to talk about today. We're going to deviate a little bit from our format just to do something a little bit fun, but we're talking about one word, controversy. And what does controversy do? According to Eric Bischoff, it creates some fucking cash, so hopefully that means more money for our podcast, right, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
more money.
So, Chris, where can everybody find our podcast so that they can start, giving us some cheddar and some dollar bills?
Is 10 is 0.
What?
I said we're going to tenfold what we've earned. 10 times 0 is still 0.
I thought that was 10. I'm good at math. But, Chris, where can everybody find our fucking podcast? Tell us.
You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find us on video. You can find us on Facebook,
Google, Spotify, YouTube. Holy
sorry.
Diphtheria. What's going on here? So you can find us on Google. You can find us on Spotify.
Apple.
He's a COVID idiot.
Yes, I got the COVID and I've been pretty rough the last few days. So
you got a little bit of BF, a little bit of brain fog.
Yeah, a little bit.
Itis. A little bit of the itis.
I'd say, for sure, yeah. But yes, as everybody helped me out on that one, that's where you can get our podcast.
Okay, wicked. And we got Josh with us today. Josh, we're going to start off our quick fire question with you. Stanley Cup playoffs are going on. Vancouver had a massive 4-goal comeback last night. Are they going to win the Stanley Cup?
No, they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. I don't know who's going to win, but it's not going to be Vancouver. I'm cheering for Vancouver, Edmonton, don't care. But I think it's going to be someone out of the East.
Okay. Second part to that question, is Vancouver right now Canada's team?
It's one of the two. I think Canada's going to cheer for anybody but Toronto, because fuck the Leafs.
Now, Chris, I know you got a little bit of the BF, so we're going to kind of keep this night nice and breezy for you. We're going to it's going to segue into what I'm going into, but I've been listening to a lot of song lyrics recently, and I just want to know what your thoughts are. True or false are your thoughts on it? What do you think? Do you think it's right to say, if you don't know, now you know?
Oh, yeah. I think
is it relevant nowadays? Like, if you don't know, now you know. And I'm not even talking about the word that comes after it, because that's irrelevant. But if you don't know, now you know. Is that relevant in today's day and age?
I mean, now I feel like I hear more, it's if you know, you know. So I guess they've gotten away from it, but I guess, yeah, you can, because it does point to but in context with a song, if you're in context with a song, I think it's kind of made its course. Maybe people our age probably be the last people who would probably, people our age would be the last people who I think would say it. Kids these days, they just listen to that drivel, so they wouldn't even know what that meant.
So is that from the Cali scene? Would you say that was from the Cali scene? That lyric? Is that an East Coast or a West Coast thing?
I think it's East. Is it East Coast? No, he wasn't with Dre or anything. Dre I don't even. My brain's so fogged up.
Okay, well, fuck this. Well, fuck. Talking to you sucks right now, but that's okay. We're gonna get through it. But in all honesty, what I will say is we're gonna kind of lead a little bit West Coast. You know why? Because we're doing a little bit something fun today. We're talking about controversy. We're talking about kind of like our Marvel and our DC what ifs. What if this actually happened in wrestling? We're each taking 2 topics. We're gonna talk a few minutes about it. Have a little bit of a debate about it. Some of it might be a little bit controversial. That's just part of how it goes. And we just thought we'd have a nice little bit of a lax podcast coming back in. And then, whenever we kick it back off next week, we'll get right back into the dirt, the storylines, everything, because we're just a little bit out of it. We have personal lives too. So fuck you, audience. But with that being said, Chris, my first topic of the night is I'm kicking it off. And the reason I kicked it off is because nobody knows what my topic is about. So what I am going to say is I leaned in with a little bit of a rap like lyric. And you know what? When I was kind of watching Dark Side of the Ring last night, we started firing some stuff in the chat. We started talking about New Jack, and New Jack comes out to some NWA, and he's crazy, right? My wrestling what if, or what could have happened, is my question to you would be, could New Jack, if held properly, been on a mainstream national TV show like WWE or WCW at the time, and been a prominent champion based on his performance level. One of my favorite things about watching with New Jack is all the stuff that he did in Smoky Mountain Wrestling when they kind of started with him and what was the other guy's name? I'm trying to remember.
What were they called? The
gangsters.
gangsters.
The gangsters.
Yeah.
So him and oh my god, what's the other guy's name? It's on the tip of my tongue, but he was like
Stevie Ray, was it?
No,
I don't remember.
I'll pull it up here in a sec, but I'll get his name right now. And it was basically Mustafa. So like basically New Jack was kicking it with Mustafa, and Mustafa, like, Jack did all the work. He was the promo guy. D'Lo Brown was like the hit guy that came in that used to take the bumps so that, and with all the stuff that's going on there, you're in like Confederate America, there's a lot of racial stuff going on. It's basically the same time as the Rodney King beatings. And Jack is just on fire in Smoky Mountain. Like they're going on board to being the number one heel tag team and possibly going on a title run. Now my question is, was Jack really that good? Because his promo skills were nuts, but if you watch some of his wrestling back in the day, he really wasn't that bad until he got into ECW and he started being this crazy asshole that everybody loved because he was just so extreme. My question is, was his stuff good enough to basically warrant him being on national television and being a potential champion with the skills that he had? Was it just a case of, obviously he was high doing coke in the dressing room a lot. He even said so in a lot of his interviews, but did he have the talent to do so? Chris, what do you think?
Like charisma wise, yeah, for sure. Like he could be a pretty big mic guy. I can see him holding his own in the bigger companies. After he got the brain damage, though, I don't think after that point, because like his in-ring just turned into, like, if you've seen when he beat on Gypsy Joe, like there are not too many wrestling maneuvers that he does anymore. Even like, I thought you were going to talk about the massive transit incident, but I guess not.
We are gonna we are probably gonna get there. I'm actually trying to get you guys to cut through the tree hole here.
Okay. Like in ring, no. I mean, I've seen some videos and I've seen some things where he's like, I've seen him actually like show people how to wrestle. I've Kevin Owens is on the top of my head. That there's a story about those two, but I can't, don't quote me on that. I think maybe he had kind of a firm grasp of the fundamentals, but even when you watch him start to go crazy, it just looks like a rag doll flying through the air. Like he does everything he does is, he just literally looks limp and like he doesn't know where his arms or his body's going. And then he just lands on people. But part of his thing is the way with his character, you can't turn that character into like a ring technician or a cerebral assassin, or because he's not he may be a behind closed doors guilty pleasure student of the game, but he doesn't show it in any of his ring work. I mean, Attitude Era, he would have had a place for sure. Like, would he have been able to get to any of those championships? No, but I think in that situation, like the hardcore title and stuff like that, I think he could have made some money for them.
Now, Josh, obviously a lot of the stuff when you talk about the documentary and you watch like Dark Side of the Ring and the documentary, the Beyond the Mat documentary with New Jack, in a lot of cases, like I think it was Barry Blaustein who actually did, or somebody that did the Beyond the Mat one, and it was a scenario where they tried to get him a leading role on like a cop show, and then the woman that was there like didn't know who he was. And he's like, I picture him as the lovable friend, like the nice guy next door. And yet I'm sitting here laughing because this guy stabbed somebody like 5 times in a ring. So Josh, my question is, like, he has some allure. Like his charisma was really good, even when he was on a documentary. Like, and I'm not saying that he would have been a world heavyweight champion. I'm not even saying he would have been an intercontinental champion. But could this guy with the right person and maybe the 90s and NWA gimmick like the Gangsters had, could they have been a legitimate tag team on a national stage if they kept their nose clean and didn't do the drugs? Or in some cases, like Mustafa smoking pencil shavings?
Oh, I mean, I think that, yeah, I believe that. I mean, he was clearly there during the Attitude Era. He fit into like a niche that could have worked with the Attitude Era. But I think that, like, I think he was just too volatile, and that's the reason that he obviously didn't get the chances. But like just like Chris said, like clearly the hardcore scene was fantastic at that time. He would have fit in like a really, really good role there. Like, I mean, I'm thinking like Mick Foley made it. He made it all the way, and not to say that he wasn't like, but his in-ring work, he was just like a clunky kind of guy, right? Like what he brought to the table was the ability to tell a story and, you know, the hardcoreness. But I think that, you know,
and the
that New
underdog,
Jack,
the underdog factor for him, for sure.
yeah, and then I think that like also with New Jack being a black wrestler, and like also, you know, like that there is a lot of that discrimination and prejudice that would be faced in WWE. Like, you know, although they weren't producing a wholesome product back in the Attitude Era, it was still like New Jack might have been a little bit too much for them, and I don't think that's right. But I think that, you know, because of, you know, his image and, you know, his, like I said, volatility, that it was a risky adventure at the same time, like, you know, discriminatory. And but I think that, you know, it wasn't because he was black, but that added to it. And, you know, I agree with Chris. His wrestling, it wasn't as good, and he wasn't like a physical specimen, obviously, right? Like that's not what he was there. I'm thinking like he could have had those classic matches with other ECW guys, right? Like, you know, the Bubba, and, you know, like he would have been able to be involved. I think that he might have, in the end, he turned it up so much because that was what he was getting paid to do, that he wouldn't have had like mass transit incidences in WWE, because he didn't have to get paid. But to get paid, he had to be willing to jump off scaffolding and all of that. So maybe he would,
he threw people off scaffolding.
No, but I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he would have never had to put himself at that type of risk where, like, you know, he might have had to do the Mick Foley thing, but he wasn't, you know, stabbing his forehead every match. And, you know, like, and I think it's kind of ironic or funny that you're saying that they had him to try to play like a nice guy, or the woman thought he'd be a nice guy. Meanwhile, he's got scrapes all over his fucking forehead. Like, and it's like, where do you think those came from? They're like, oh, I just thought it was because he's a bald guy and, like, you know, his skin's loose.
Because
like,
he fosters kitties. He fosters kitties.
Yeah,
scratch him.
So
like it's fair enough. Like I think with Jack, God bless his soul. I mean, we're gonna switch topics here in a sec. I think the final thing was, I think like one of the things that kind of stood out to me is like, I think I always wonder, and it sounds real shitty, but it's like WWE had Crime Time and like after the Attitude Era, and they were really good. And in a lot of cases, it was like just this really hyped up version of let's go do crimes. And, you know, I think like if they like agree, Josh, having him in hardcore, the hardcore thing would have been amazing too. But I'm not going to hold up on New Jack. I have my thoughts. I think he was just he was a much better talent than people thought he was, and that's just why I thought I'd bring it up. But Josh, what's you're going to lead off next? What topic are you bringing up right now?
Yeah, so I was reading about a few things when you asked us to put this together, and I saw it. What happened? I was watching something, and they were talking about there was a time where John Cena was going to be turned, and he was going to turn heel, and there was a perfect opportunity for him to turn heel, and they didn't do it. And I think John Cena, you know, is the greatest wrestler of his time, not wrestling ability, but like most influential wrestler. But I think that the lack of a heel turn that he had means that like his character, like he never really had much of a change. It just what he had right after the rapper character, he got it right, and he just stuck with it, kind of like Hulk Hogan. But I think the thing that happened to Hulk Hogan when he turned, that like made his character like, oh, like there it is, you know, like that is like the evolution, whether you like Hulk Hogan or not. And so I think that because John Cena didn't turn, that his character itself isn't as strong. But I would have loved to see John Cena turn, and I think that had John Cena turned, I would have been a John Cena wrestling fan. And I think that because he was continually a face, it was just difficult to like never have that moment where he had any variation in his character. And I think that like, you know, he just kept on switching from different colored shirt to different colored shirt. And it was like, is it all about merch? You know, like it's all about this. And it's like, you're selling this brand that's John Cena. Now he did so many great things. It's really hard to turn him heel, right? Like similarly to The Rock being turned heel recently. Like people in real life were like, well, how is this happening? Like, oh my God, like The Rock is a heel. So like for John Cena to be a heel, really difficult because he had such a public face of being such a great person. But like, they could have turned him heel when he was on the Howard Stern show ripping up fucking Canyon and leaned into that a little bit more and turned him into more of an asshole. But like align him with Vince and make Vince a heel and make him an easy heel like that. So anyways,
Chris, before I pass it on, I'll ask a couple questions here. But when we're kind of looking, I think Josh hit it right on the head. I think like his character, his original rap character that they had was the original spot of him being a heel. Like that was originally a heel character because there are heel raps, and he did them, a lot of them, and it just eventually became so popular. It was one of kind of like the WWE's NWO moment. Like this guy's so bad, he's good. Like we want to cheer for him, and there's nothing else that we can do. But Chris, do you think that the monotony of John Cena, like a lack of an adaptation in his career, was positive to his character, or do you think it was negative to his character? Because there's a lot of positive things that came out from John Cena not changing his character over the 15 years or 20 years or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, like the movie roles and everything.
I immediately think of Make-A-Wish. Like I immediately think about the heel. You can't do the Make-A-Wish stuff, and that was like one of the things. And Josh, I get it. Like I think as a wrestling fan as well, when we think of John, we all would have loved to see the heel turn. But Chris, you can go ahead.
I think, well, obviously, like, yeah, didn't do anything bad for him. We can see how much, like, would it have done anything over and above what he has now? I doubt it. I don't think he would have gotten any more. The one thing, and he liked it, yeah, and it was good for WWE. And if he liked doing, if he's giving his time to go do the Make-A-Wish things, then I'm glad he didn't turn heel, right? It's good for all those kids. The other thing is not turning him the whole time is like they're just holding on to the kids. He's like one of the last beacons that's holding on to those kids, right? He's the hustle, loyalty, respect. That audience isn't really going to go anywhere with him there, and he's the one who attracts the most of that crowd. So kind of, and everybody, and well, at least half the universe likes him in live shows. So that turning heel though would have been like, because with the way the ratings were back then, if he would have turned heel, we probably would have started seeing the ratings and the numbers that they were the Attitude Era, like when Hogan turned. Like, because a lot of people who left wrestling because they were tired, a lot of older people, like older guys like us and people like that, kind of turn away because to us it's kind of, it gets stale and he's at the top all the time. But if he would have done that turn, a lot of us would have gone back at that point, right?
So my hypothetical here before we kind of move to another topic here that we go through, just because we're on the time thing, but for each one of you, where would you have moved him heel? At what timeline of his career would you have moved him, and what would you have done as be the booker?
I'd say if he beat Undertaker's streak, do it cheaply.
Oh, that's so good. That is really good. Or I don't know if he would have interfered on Daniel Bryan when he got that organic push. He would have interfered.
You guys missed the most organic turn that could have happened.
Okay, at a Make-A-Wish place where he punches is that the one? Like where he pulls the cord out. He's like, I gotcha. Like that's terrible.
I think the one that would have got him right off the bat that really would have swayed ratings in a lot of way after like the WCW merger and the ratings drop would have been to found him a way to be the leader of the Nexus. And I think if he was the leader of the Nexus, everybody, because the fucking Nexus were so hated, and you know what, he could have done something with those kids, even just for like 6 months to a year, done a storyline where basically he was the one that was telling them to run roughshod and wreck Raw and do all that shit. And it was just
people would have paid attention.
The mastermind behind it, and I think it would have kind of done something different where he was kind of like this. I don't know. You could have put him in a suit. You could have done something just drastically different and really just changed his character for that time. And I think it would have been something really interesting. Instead, they
would have helped those kids a lot too. have helped all those other young kids. Probably would have got more eyes on them and more interest in them just because of that whole situation. If that happened,
well, for sure. And I mean, like the thing was, like with the Nexus was, it was a great storyline. They didn't know where to go with it because it got so popular so fast, and that's what happened. Barrett got screwed out of it. Like a bunch of guys really got screwed out of that because they said these guys haven't earned anything, and we're gonna put them at the top of the card. And it just ended up being like an old wrestling, like, hey, they haven't paid their dues type shit. But that's the reality of it. Now, Chris, you have a topic. What are you bringing up for your topic here?
Yeah, I'm interested to talk about where, for us who remember Velveteen Dream in NXT, where he would have been had the allegations of the grooming, the sending the illicit pictures of himself to underage boys and girls. And
wasn't there there was a party incident too with his schmeckle as well, right?
He was filming people.
He's filming people. I was getting to the rest. I was getting to the rest of that stuff too.
Sorry.
But like, yeah, he was, battery, trespassing, all that kind of stuff. Drug paraphernalia, and like filming other wrestlers in in the shower and shit. So I'm wondering, without those, because before any of that happened, well, before that came public during the Speak Out movement, he was being pushed pretty hard, and the fans had him, and he kind of had a, I'm not gonna say gold dust, but he was kind of a gold dusty like character. I mean, he did sway a little bit on the more feminine side, towards more of a Prince character. Nothing wrong with that.
It was like a cross between Prince and Jimi Hendrix. That's the best way to kind of put it, right? Like that's the way I felt his character was when he was doing it.
Yeah, and like he'd had the North American Championship, so with the talent, he had huge in-ring talent. He made some moves look, or some things off the top rope just looked like he was going to hit the roof. But yeah, so I'm wondering, without those allegations, without those legal issues, just wondering where you guys think he could have possibly ended up.
Josh, lead the way.
I kind of just got back into wrestling when this all happened, so I didn't really get to see a lot of his work. Obviously the stories are so damning, regardless of what the fact, like if it was true or not. He was, it ruined his career so badly. But I don't know. I think that, there might have been a place for him. It's just, I mean, the way the WWE's been going the last little while, it's like he would have been a really mid-carder, and, would he have gotten over with the other with the current fans? I think based on the storylines that were in place, it would have been hard for him to go anywhere. I don't know his in-ring work well enough. But it's not surprising to see people move up and then just fizzle out. So I'd say that like 50-50, maybe he'd still be active, but I would say that he would be somewhere below a Gable, and maybe in a tag team at this point.
Rivalry of the year in NXT against Aleister Black in 2017.
Yeah.
Where does Aleister Black wrestle again?
He's Malachi Black.
House of Black. I know. I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic.
I think my thoughts were is that he did stuff that was so different in the ring for his size. Is that like the comparison that I give Velveteen Dream now is like Trick Williams, right? And not in character. And I think one of the things that's kind of really unique is that he created a character that didn't even really have a name. He was just Velveteen Dream. And I think like the interesting part is that I think he would have done well on the main roster, because let's face it, we don't have those characters anymore that can go through. I think he really would have created a niche. He probably would have created his own segment. He probably would have been something similar like a Grayson Waller at this point, but I can't discredit anything that he did in the ring. Like he put together some really good matches on like the NXT versions of the PLEs. He had a match with Aleister Black, like in that rivalry, that was really, really strong. Like that was one of the best matches of the year, I think, in NXT that year as well. And like he just was firing on all cylinders, and then all of a sudden it just became allegation after allegation after allegation after allegation. And you know what? I think that one of the scenarios too is that it's hard because we live in such a cancel culture. And he was a guy that never got a second chance. And like right now, if you guys are following anything, he kind of got back into a wrestling ring for the first time, I think a few weeks ago, and basically was just met with such, and I mean, it's hard. Like none of those things that he did are acceptable, and you have to be accountable for them in your life. It's hard. I think like if we were ever to think of us doing something wrong and it was a mistake, we probably would like a second chance. And we're not here to discuss second chances, but I find that, some people have done things, they got a second chance, and then it's trying to find retribution, right? I don't know if he ever will find the retribution from what he did, but who am I to tell people how they feel or think? I'm not going to do that. But as me, myself, I'd like to see if people can get second chances, as long as they make amends and they're accountable for their actions fully for what happened. And I don't know if he'll be able to do that. But
what a weird situation, eh? Like he gets released, but yet look what Vince is doing, and it's so
irony.
I know it's so ironic. I never put two and two together though. People getting released over these things, yet he's still doing them. So
I was on Twitter today talking. There was some guy about something that happened, and we don't even know the whole story about at a card tournament or something that happened recently. And the people online are trying to get like this guy to explain the whole story and have to apologize to the whole fucking Twitterverse about this situation that happened, when him and the other guy that it happened to went behind closed doors, apologized, went through the whole situation, and then basically gave their contacts. And everybody's like, well, we need to know what it almost felt like. People were like, well, you need to be fully accountable and tell us what happened. And if you don't tell us what happened, we're gonna fucking riot. And it's like, no, man, like if me and Josh have a fight and I say something and it's like are 10 people going to go on Twitter and say, well, Matt, what the fuck you better tell us what you did to Josh that would allow him to accept this apology? And it's like, I don't know, like it's just such a hard society to navigate. Like I said, I don't commend anything that, I know we're a little bit off track, but I don't commend that anything that he did whatsoever. But
like, can you put a disclaimer underneath my thing? Josh does not agree with much that Matt just said. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking.
No, I'll just end on what I'm saying, which is I believe that certain people, like I said, deserve a second chance or some retribution to kind of make amends, as long as they're fully accountable and they've made their amends to the people that they've made the amends to. That's basically, I don't know. That's just disclaimer. Oh yeah, I'm the host.
Go ahead, Matt. You're next.
So I'm gonna go with something a little bit on the lighter side here, which is going to be kind of an interesting one. I'm going to set the scene for you guys here. I want to say it's 1996, and I want to say,
is it dusky? Is it somber?
And I want to say it's Bash at the Beach.
Oh,
and I want to say there's a certain six-man tag between two outsiders, and basically Macho Man and two other people that I don't care about, Lex Luger and somebody else. Now the question is here, gentlemen, what happens if it wasn't Hulk Hogan as the third man of the NWO, but it was Stinger? Chris, are you deaf? I thought you'd be excited by this.
No,
what if it was Sting as the lead man of the NWO instead of Hulk Hogan?
Huh.
Ooh.
How do you think that would have kind of been for the future of the for the NWO? How do you think that would have went for WCW instead of having a 97-year-old Hulk Hogan be Hollywood Hogan?
Did you say there was a six-man tag? Bash of the Beach 2000?
No, 96.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Bash of the Beach 2000 was Vince Russo.
That was the last one, yeah.
The one where basically the NWO formed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would say.
What if it wasn't Hogan? What if it wasn't Hogan? It was Sting. Josh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, isn't that part of like why it was so massive? Was because Hogan finally turned heel. Like that was his big thing, and like not his big thing, but like that was how big it was. I think that was. I mean, and I don't know enough about WCW like back then, but I feel like was Sting's character, was this when he was
Sting was John Cena.
So but was he the Crow Sting at that point?
Chris, you might know better the timeline. I don't think he was
1996. I don't
No, because he was
I
in the
don't think
match.
so.
No, because Sting was in the match, wasn't he? Sting was in that 6-man tag.
So,
It was Sting. It was
and
Sting, Luger,
NWA hadn't
Macho Man.
formed yet, so no, it wasn't.
So
he wasn't.
He was bleach blonde Stinger.
Right. Yeah. So I would say that, and that's why I would say that I think Hulk Hogan was the one that would have been. It's the bigger. It's very clearly Hulk Hogan was the biggest star at the, not the biggest star at the time, but that's the ultimate baby face, the guy who has always been the face of the company, the guy who fights evil. And whether Sting was that guy or not, I think that the NWO, that turn with Hogan is much much crazier. But I do agree that Sting is always Sting has been that. If it was Sting, it would have been equally as good. I think it would have been better for Sting's career. That's for sure. In the sense that, like, he might have made the transition to WWE earlier, and he might have had some more eventful matches. But I think that, like, the way that WCW was looking, than the way that Hogan booked himself, and that he had the the clause where he was the one who would decide how his character works. Like, even I was watching where he pinned Sting, and it was supposed to be a fast count, and it wasn't, and it was like that was Hogan doing that. So I think that, like, yeah, I think that it was better the way it was, because I think Hogan was the bigger shock.
Chris,
to the world.
I'd have to I kind of disagree, because Sting was WCW's John Cena. So I think globally, so here, I guess it's two parts. I think within WCW and within their fan base, it would have been bigger. I think throughout the whole wrestling world, it wouldn't have been bigger. But that, it would have been interesting to see Sting kind of go heel like that early on. And I guess, yeah, I think to me the big thing would be just those WCW fans. They went crazy when Hogan turned heel and threw stuff in the ring. I can just imagine some of those guys who've been watching it forever back in the day, how they would all feel like Sting turned on them, because Sting was and always will be WCW, actually, now, like, when you think about it. So I think it would have had, yeah, like I said, sorry, brain fog.
No, it's cool. The hard part here is that, like, the storyline writes out better if Hogan is the person that's the heel, right?
It does, yeah.
It writes out way easier, and that's like what a lot of people think. But I agree, like, in the sense that Sting was never a heel at that point. If he would have gone through, the other question that comes after that is, who would WCW have taken Hogan to be the original Hulk Hogan and done whatever he could to be the face of WCW to rise up? Or what if they've tried to build on a new star, which was maybe try to go back to somebody like a Lex Luger, maybe to try and get them to the top again? And Lex Luger was never at the top after that Bash of the Beach, by the way. He had, like, maybe one reign. They did one reiteration where he came back as, like, this weird ass fucking mixture of Lex Luger and the original narcissist Lex Luger, when he was the perfect package, or the total package, or whatever they called him. Like, fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, he had no business being at the top of a card ever. He was so bad in those,
like,
spots.
I think in the 80s he fit perfectly, because he was the golden boy. He had the golden blonde hair. Like, fuck, like, he matched well for the 80s, early 90s, even in the WWE when he had his WWF reign, right? I mean, there was nothing wrong with giving the belt to Luger at that point and picking up Yokozuna and slamming him for the title. But I think when you look at this, I think that there's just it's just an easier story to write with Hogan. But I think there would have been some clear revolt. I think there would have been probably more tears in the stands that night if Sting would have switched over. And I think it probably would have been a whole different demographic for Sting's career. And I think one of the things that it would have taken away from is the whole Crow angle for that whole year, which is one of the best angles that WCW had in the tenured history of that company.
I also don't think it leads to the 83 weeks. I don't think you have enough outside.
No,
because those WWE guys, they might have heard of Sting, but they're not exactly like the non-hardcores back then. I don't think the Monday Night Wars would have been the same as they were. So that's also another.
And that's why it had to be Hogan, is because they were trying to steal those WWE fans or WWF fans, right? Like, take Hogan, and Hogan's the biggest star that WWF ever produced at that point. But yeah, so I think that, and then again, like you said, Matt, it would have never led to the crow sting. In fact, I was watching the story, or I was watching a short, and it was actually Scott Hall who told Sting to change his character to that, and that Scott Hall gave Sting the advice and said, "Have you ever seen the movie The Crow? You should do that," and he did.
Hey yo, you should do that crow thing.
Yeah, yeah, you sent it to us, right? Was that you that sent it to us?
I don't think so.
No, I gotta see if I see it again. I'll send it to you.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I think like it's funny because it takes one simple decision to kind of go through and to really kind of rewrite history, which is kind of really cool to see. So, Chris,
Don't
you're
be
on
a mark and don't be a mark and put on some black paint.
Snort some coke and
yeah, try this. This'll help you.
hey, here's a couple of nose beers. Chris, go ahead. It's your final.
That's me.
That's Josh.
Oh, sorry, Josh. My apologies.
Okay, so I love AEW. Thank you to Tony and the Bucks, and even Cody and
Wardlow.
Kenny and Wardlow. Yeah. So had AEW not formed, or had the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega gone to the WWE instead of forming AEW, I think they would be. I think potentially both, if not all three, would be dropped by WWE at this point, or not still in WWE. I think they would have been mismanaged. I don't think that Kenny Omega was strong enough on the mic, and that the ability to have the matches that they can have only happens in a promotion that's not WWE. And it's only because I think that WWE wouldn't have let them flourish as well. I think that I'm so happy that AEW exists, because we get to see their style of wrestling, and I just think that their style of what they do doesn't translate. Similarly to Will Ospreay going to AEW, I think for best matches, AEW is where he needed to be, not because the best competitors aren't in WWE, but because WWE doesn't let them have those type of matches. They focus more on the promos and the spectacle, and that the wrestling isn't as. I mean, it's getting a lot better now that Triple H is there, but when under Vince's reign, had they gone to WWE, I think that they would have been severely mismanaged, and they definitely wouldn't have been main event. Bucks probably would have had a title shot, just because they're, it's a tag team. Likely Kenny, I think that he still might have been, in the Intercontinental picture, but would they have had the level of success that they have in AEW? Absolutely not. And it's not, again, I don't think it's because they're not capable of it. I think it's just that they're not WWE's type of wrestlers, and that it would be very difficult for those type of wrestlers to get over in WWE. Similar to like a Daniel Bryan, where he had to be organically over with the fans, that like took over the whole show. And you see him go to AEW, and he's able to he's able, and not just able, he is one of the best wrestlers in the world, or if not the best technical wrestler in the world, that he can put on these great matches with these guys. And so like they're capable of having those matches in WWE. I just don't think that they allow them to have that type of match. They don't let them take the risks like that.
Chris, obviously the Bucks ended up in TNA a little bit as Generation Me. So you kind of saw them a little bit, and they were able to kind of maintain that high flying attitude, and actually ended up being really good for TNA at one point. But with them going to the WWE, obviously they'd be under a different production, kind of what Josh was saying, right? Do you still think that they would be successes at that point, or where would you kind of put the Omega and the Bucks, and what would you do with them to really make them successful in the WWE?
Yeah, it's tough because it's like WWE is a graveyard for tag teams. Basically, like they debut, like Josh said, they'd probably get a title shot. I agree with that, because any team that debuts from outside gets a title shot, or a run with the titles, drops the titles, and then basically there's nothing for them, right? I think the Bucks have, they were being the elite. I'm sure they're kind of behind doing that, so they're creative, so I think they could have held their own on the mic. I just like their wrestling would have had to been toned down, so I don't think they would have been happy, because I mean WWE is not only not going to let them because it's not their style, but WWE also wants to probably limit as many injuries as they can, so they don't want guys jumping off the top rope 30 times in one match, topeing, doing all that. So
Meltzer driver.
I think I agree with Josh. I don't think they would have been around for renewal. I don't think they would have liked it. I don't think they would have liked the atmosphere. Clearly, you said they went to TNA. They were on ROH. They were in Japan. I think that showed them that that's what they like. Like if they weren't unhappy about that enough to want to go to WWE, instead, you have to give it to them. They said, let's make a company like that we want to work in. So I think ultimately any long-term thing they would have signed, if that was on their head to build their own promotion where they can run it the way they want, I think they would have been unhappy. And I think usually that'll come out on TV too. So I don't think it would have been a good opportunity. I don't think it would have been good for anybody.
I think the caveat here is that I don't think the Young Bucks would have been successful. I think they would have had a renewal situation. They're just so used to doing it their own way that I think getting there and really having somebody like stand over their matches, telling them what the fuck to do is probably going to be something that's not happening, right? The problem is I also think in the WWE, and Josh is going to laugh at this, that they would have had to fucking find a weight room real fast. And if they found anything, they would have found the weight room because there's nobody that would have let them out until they put on another 20 pounds until they came back out. Kenny Omega is a different story. I think Kenny, I don't think Kenny's bad on the mic at all. I think he would have had a different spot in the WWE where he probably would have ended up. I think wouldn't have debuted him as a baby face. They would have cheered when he came in. But I think you would have probably played him as like a soft heel. Like I think that's really what they would have probably worked towards in his promos because of his, he has these mannerisms and the way that he does things. It's almost like it's just not like your big badass. He's gonna kind of play like a softish heel, but he's gonna portray himself as being really fucking hard. But his mannerisms to be funny and the comedic really portrays him to be soft. And I think that's probably where they would have left. His moveset and the way that he wrestles and his physique, I think would have made him a success there. But again, I agree with what both of you say. You're going from 7-star matches or these matches that are going to be talked about for 100 years. And are you going to have one of those matches in WWE? I don't think you will because everything is so hands-on to the minutia that what are you going to do? Are you going to do that? Like, I mean, we've been seeing some great matches on WWE PLEs right now. Like we saw fucking Backlash had a 35-minute tag team match that opened the show. Like 35 fucking minutes. And it was good. And, but I think part of the thing is for these types of people is just that creativity. If they don't have it, it's like an artist, they crave it and they're going to want it real bad. They would starve in the WWE because that's their sustenance, right? So that's where I think they would have ended up. So I think Omega would have been a bigger success than the Bucks. All right. Last topic. Is this the last topic, Christopher Daniels?
Yeah. I thought you were gonna dox me there. Yeah. So I recently watched Dark Side of the Ring, and it was the Sandman episode. Very entertaining. If anybody out there gets a chance to watch it, I would. It's very entertaining, especially if you're an ECW fan. So the big story behind that was that Kurt Angle was in attendance. Kurt Angle was in attendance. He was on. I believe he did commentary with them. He also did a brief on-air promo, and he also attended the show. A little backstory. Have you seen it, John? Do you know anything about? Okay, so. Shane Douglas and Kurt were friends, and Shane Douglas invited him, saying that ECW is a lot closer than WWE to Kurt Angle's wrestling. And of course, Kurt Angle got there and said, "This isn't at all like amateur wrestling." So, anyways, Sandman's family was involved in a storyline. Sandman lost a match, I believe, if I remember correctly. But then Sandman's wife was there, and his son was there, and Raven was there, and his son turned on him, and then Raven brought out a crucifix, put barbed wire around Sandman's head, and put him up in the ring. Side note, lo and behold, like 6 months later, WWE did it with Stephanie McMahon, of course.
Yeah.
But so Kurt Angle told Paulie, Paulie at the time, he told him that he said, like, if you put any of this on TV, I'll sue you. He's like, I don't want any part of this being involved. Yeah. And so Paulie told him, I didn't know that was under the ring. He's apparently still says he didn't know it was there. But yet Kurt Angle was there when they did it the next time, and I didn't see him complaining with that WWE check. But so what my question is what could Matt, do you remember the date of that? Sorry, it's ECW High incident. I should be able to find it real quick.
I don't know. Why are you looking at
1996 as well.
No, nice.
So yeah. So basically, what I'm wondering is, how could that have changed that? That would have been 4 years, 4 or 5 years prior to them closing. Do you think having an outside star, like an Olympic gold medalist, come over, like somebody with credibility, like a lot of credibility outside, do you think he could have come in and maybe things would have changed? Could ECW have maybe lasted a little longer, is what I'm wondering. And
just starting with Josh or I.
Whoever wants to go first. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. I don't think he ever would have signed there. I think that's my first step. But I think that if he would have, I think financially, I think they could have found a way to save the company. And I think that there's a way that you draw this up where Kurt Angle could have easily stepped in the first couple months of being the number one heel in that entire company. And I think the problem is that being so green in the wrestling industry, he wouldn't have understood how much money he would have made. He's going to make more money in the WWE. He would have done whatever, but he ended up a fucking heel over there anyways. But that's because he pictured himself as the face, like he's this homegrown hero. They don't give a shit about that. They're fucking hardcore wrestling. So what do you become to fucking get the fans to hate you? You are anti-extreme. And who in the time in this company would have been able to been with him to guide him in the wrestling industry right off the bat? You're going to say Paul Heyman.
No, I know.
You know who it is?
Cyrus.
Fucking right. Don Callis would have been the perfect person to pair Kurt Angle with, and he would have made a fuckload of money doing it right. And, because it would have pissed everybody off. 6 months in, he just goes in and he beats RVD. He takes the title, and he goes, he does kind of a Lance Storm. Maybe he just takes the two biggest titles and say, you're not fucking extreme, and just kind of challenges. Fans would have been throwing shit, trying to stab him. That's how much they would have hated him. Now, again, he would have never signed there. But financially, I think that might have bought them another couple years, because they would have filled up some bigger venues trying to get in there with all the hate they would have had on Kurt. That's my thought, really. Josh?
I did see the incident and read, watched some shorts about it. And Kurt Angle hadn't wrestled, he hadn't had a name in wrestling yet. He was just an Olympic gold medalist at the time. To be honest with you, I think that he probably thought he was duped by his friend about what ECW was and that he was going to like it. And then he saw what they were about, and this was his angle to get out, right? He's like, fuck that shit. I'm not going to do this. Are you kidding me? You're going to put a guy on a cross? Perfect. I'm Jewish. I'm not Jewish. I'm Christian. And so you can't just do that, and I'm going to leave. And I think that that was his way to get around it. It's very clear that he didn't have, his scruples weren't very strong if he then watched Stephanie McMahon get, crucified similarly. So I think that clearly, it was about that he didn't want to wrestle that kind of wrestling. And yeah, but had he stayed, maybe it changes. I do like that angle that you're talking about, Matt. He would really piss the fans off being super clean. It would have been, it would have been interesting to see. I think ultimately WWE is the place that everybody wanted to be at that point. His clean cut look was much more suited for the WWE. And I think that, he wanted to be at the big time, and he saw ECW and was like, this is not the big time.
No, for 100%. I think that's why I said all the way through that he wouldn't have signed, right? So he's going to go to the WWE, he's going to take the paycheck, and then he's going to shut his mouth when the crucifix angle happens. I mean, if you think about Kurt Angle's career over the whole thing, and you think about his 25, 30 years, there's been worse angles than the crucifix angle. I mean, he had a fucking angle with his ex-wife and fucking Jeff Jarrett, which was fucking.
What about the angle with fucking Booker T? What didn't he say he was gonna like rape his wife, basically?
Something
well,
like
this is that was Perk Angle though.
Perk Angle, but regardless, like he was like, "I'm coming for you." What was it, Charmel? I don't want to say it wrong.
Yeah.
He's coming for you, and it's like he's gonna force himself on her. Like that's just gonna work. Like she's like,
no,
and it's like
the only reason he worked with his ex-wife and her new husband is because he didn't know where he was. That's the only reason he did it, probably.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, where else are you gonna go? Like, what are you gonna do?
True.
Like, you're just gonna not have a paycheck, and you're loaded up on drugs, and you know, like, I'm glad Kurt's out of it. Like, good, but I mean, like, hey, those are rough decisions when you're fucking high on drugs. Let's be for real.
Dick moved by Dixie to even put him through that.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? Like, so, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but like, you can always look back in retrospect. I mean, it's. My dad used to always say, like, he's like, it's easier to be an asshole than to be a good guy. And it really is easier to be an asshole. It's easier to find a path for a heel than it is to find a path for a babyface, because the babyface has to be organic with the crowd. Heel doesn't. We can just make we can do a bunch of shit that makes people hate us.
Like where are we in Calgary?
Like right now, and I can say a bunch of shit that's fucking politically incorrect, and then fucking we'd be taken down in a second, right? Like,
no, just get the cheap heat. You're like, this city sucks. Your people suck. Your women are fat.
It's great to be here in Calgary. Oh, I mean Edmonton.
Yeah,
we're in Springfield.
So, you know, I don't know. Like, I love the what ifs because they're really cool. The Dark Side of the Ring really kind of does a lot of the what ifs. And I think, like, if you ever watch that show, for some of you, if you've never seen it, people might say, oh, like, if you're in Canada, pay for it on Crave. No, man, go on Tubi. It's for free. You get the first 2 seasons for free. So, you know, go check them out. And if you like it, then subscribe and get the whole fucking shitload of whatever it is. But, yeah, the crucifix angle is crazy. So many crazy fucking stories that are on there for all of us to watch, and the what ifs are awesome. So, Josh, I don't know. Do you have a slice of salami for this week?
You know what? I have a. You know what really makes me mark.
What makes you mark?
So, you know what really makes me mark? The fans in France. Holy fuck, Jesus! You know, you never think that that fans should be able to make a spectacle better, but the fans made Backlash 10 times better. I almost want to see all of their pay-per-views to be in Europe, where the fans are going, let's go to Serbia next time, you know, but put it on at 8:00 at night, because like the way that the fans responded, the wrestlers performed differently. They performed better because the way they were reacting to the way the fans were chanting. And you just don't see that in North America, especially in America. Canada's fans are definitely hotter than the US fans. And for a WWE show, like, to not hear the white noise, to hear like, you know, we know that they pump in sound, but there was no sound being pumped in. And I know that they're pumping in sound because I was listening to CM Punk's promo the other day, and you could hear a pin drop at certain points, but they were still had that constant hum behind him. And it was like fans weren't reacting to what he was saying. And it was similarly to the Serena Deeb promo last night, which I was like almost gagging on how bad it was. Not because it was just the reaction was poor. I know the fans weren't buying it. She had a "Let's Go Oilers" chant over top of her, and I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve to be there. It's just the promo was not good. But the fans at France, holy crap, it made you feel something, and it made the event better. If you want to give an event 5 stars, 5-star plus, fuck the matches, Dave Meltzer. That was a 7-star crowd, and yeah. That's what really makes me mark. When wrestling fans react the way they should, we're getting complacent as North American fans. We're not enjoying the product, and we're sitting there and being quiet. The event could be that much better if we just, you know, participate a little bit more.
We got to go back and do the world tour, like Saturday Night Slam Masters on Super Nintendo, where you end up going to like fucking Mannheim, Germany and shit like that. Like, there needs to be a European tour that's strong, because let's fucking face it, the European crowds deserve it, and you're not going to get everything like you get in France, but I'd say France, Germany, fucking England, you're going to get that all the way through, and they deserve to have shows there, like they really do. And I mean, yeah, that French crowd was something else, and it's amazing when you can get a crowd that's electric like that to go there. It's amazing to be in an electric crowd like that. Like there was a couple shorts where I can't remember, the whole crowd was singing and they were going crazy and people were just like, you know, the superstars are just looking like, what the fuck do we do, man? Like this is insane. And
it was incessant. It was crazy, so intense. Like it was nonstop.
They had the on the cell phones. They had the noise alerts that were coming up on the cell phones and on everybody's like watches and shit. Like that's fucking crazy. Like the only time I ever see that is when I stick my arm out the window of my car, and it triggers on my fucking Apple Watch. That's it.
Jey Uso's entrance, like that was fucking great. Like the way that they reacted to him, like it's just fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, guys, killer podcast for the evening. This was fun. Obviously, we've kind of had like a little bit of a weird schedule. Shit's going on. We got work in our personal lives and everything happening, and we got fucking animals, and people are getting sick with diphtheria and all this fucking bullshit. But coming into
the black lung.
Black lung. Got a case of the Black Death right now.
Yeah.
And we basically made it through this entire fucking podcast, and we haven't said a goddamn thing about Josh's mask.
Oh yeah, we did.
Like, let's be realistic here. Like, Josh is just more a mask this whole time, and we just never we didn't even mention it at all.
Diamante Azul. My dad brought it from Mexico for me. I won't wear it every day, but I figured I'd put it on for the day that I got it.
Diamante Azul, blue diamond.
We treat it like John Cena.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of like him going by Joshinho, or like I like to say, Chris, the best person with a mask, Silencio.
I want to bring up one thing,
sure,
in case you weren't going to ask me my last thoughts. But looking at the Wikipedia page I just want to go over Bash at the Beach 96 card with everybody if we have time.
Is that the one that I'm talking about, though? That's the right one, right? Like, is 96 is the one?
No, I just, it's interesting. So we have Jim Powers defeating Hugh Morris in to open. Steiner's defeated Harlem Heat for the world champion, the WCW tag titles. Bobby Walker, whoever that is, beat Billy Kidman in 2 minutes. The Rock and Roll Express defeated Fire and Ice in 2 minutes and 8 seconds. That's Scott Norton Ice Train.
Oh, that's
Eddie Guerrero over Regal, 3 minutes 38. Mysterio Jr. beat Psychosis. That was probably good. 15 minutes. That was probably a decent match. Jim Earthquake Tenta defeated Ray Big Bubba, a.k.a. the Big Boss Man Trainer. Carson City Silver Dollar match. That one went almost 10 minutes. DDP and Hacksaw in a taped fist match. Somehow gave that 5 minutes. Nasty Boys defeated Public Enemy in a double dog collar match, which also got 10 minutes. Malenko over Disco for the Cruiserweight Championship, 12 minutes. Mongo McMichael, whoever Joe Gomez is, they're high up on the card, 6 minutes. Ric Flair beat Conan for the United States Heavyweight Championship, 15 minutes. The Giant, the Taskmaster beat Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit in a tag match. Then it was the main event we talked about. Interesting card.
Fuck, Carson Silver Dollar match. That's fucking hilarious.
Dude, what is that?
In a taped fist match, DDP and Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Funny.
Josh, any final thoughts for tonight's podcast?
I'm glad to be back. Looking forward to getting back into some serious chatting, and it's been good.
Getting ready. I forgot to tell you guys my final thought, and I don't usually have a final thought before I go into my final rant, but I just really want to hype up. When we bought the AEW pay-per-view for Dynasty, they had a deal where you could buy actually the next 2 or 3 of them together for a cheaper price, for like $25 cheaper. So I'm pretty ecstatic that I don't have to pay for the next 2 AEW pay-per-views.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm not going to mention the company. I mean, you know where to go find them, but fuck, whatever.
Unless they sponsor us.
Yeah, then we'll mention them 3 times.
I'll say their fucking name. I'll say it 3 times, and we'll have a logo in the bottom of the screen and shit when we launch it. But with that being said, wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night from everybody here at the Rub Wrestling Podcast with Matt, Chris, and Josh and Chris. We all bid you adieu. Everybody have a great night. Bang! The world that we know it is coming to a closure. Can't find peace in the world full of
shots. Can't stop getting on